Standing in the light. The gallery showing arrived on a crisp autumn evening, 6 weeks after Victor's departure. True to his threats, he tried to cause trouble, sending lawyers with cease and desist letters, claiming Dante's sculpture violated his privacy somehow. But the legal machinations came to nothing. Victor's criminal record and the restraining order worked against him, and eventually, his lawyers advised him to let it go. Sienna stood before her bedroom mirror, the scarf lying unused on the dresser. She'd chosen a deep blue dress that Marina insisted brought out her eyes, and for once, she didn't immediately focus on the scar. Instead, she saw what Dante had been telling her all along, a woman who'd survived, who'd found courage in the rubble of her old life. "You look beautiful," Marina whispered from the doorway, tears glistening. "I'm so proud of you." "I'm terrified," Sienna admitted. "What if people stare? What if they pity me?" "Then let them. Their reactions say everything about them and nothing about you." Marina hugged her tightly. "But I think you'll be surprised." The gallery was housed in the old lighthouse keeper's cottage, transformed by soft lighting and whitewashed walls. When Sienna entered with Marina, she was overwhelmed by the turnout. It seemed like half of Mirestone Bay had come, along with art critics and collectors from neighboring cities. But it was Dante's work that stole her breath. He'd created an entire series about transformation and healing. Sculptures of figures emerging from water, breaking through stone, reaching toward light. And there, in the place of honor, stood her piece, but he'd added something. Around the base, he'd carved words, "Beauty is the courage to be seen." "Do you like it?" Dante appeared at her elbow, nervous energy radiating from him. He wore a dark suit that made him look unfairly handsome, his artist's hands somehow elegant when not covered in clay. "I love it," Sienna said truthfully. "But I'm more interested in this." She gestured to the crowd, to his work displayed like the gift it was. As the evening progressed, Sienna found herself drawn into conversations. Some people asked about the sculpture, and she told them honestly, it represented her journey from hiding to healing. A few stared at her scar with curiosity or pity, but most looked at her with respect, with recognition of shared struggles. Mrs. Chen, the baker, clasped Sienna's hands in her weathered ones. "My daughter has a birthmark across half her face. She's 12 and already talking about hiding it. Would you mind speaking with her sometime? I think hearing your story might help." "I'd be honored," Sienna replied, something warm blooming in her chest. As the crowd thinned, a distinguished woman in her 60s approached, Constance Whitmore, a renowned art collector. "Mr. Marlowe's work is extraordinary," she said. "But I'm more interested in the woman who inspired it. He tells me you're the reason he found his art again." Sienna glanced at Dante, who was watching with barely contained hope. "He's the one who helped me find myself." "That's the best kind of collaboration." Constance smiled. "I'd like to purchase the collection. All of it. And I'd like to commission Mr. Marlowe for a series exploring similar themes. Would you consider being involved in the creative process? Your perspective could be invaluable." It was more than Sienna had dreamed possible, not just acceptance, but recognition that her experience held value beyond her own healing. Later, as the last guests departed and Marina handled the business details, Dante led Sienna outside. The lighthouse beam swept across the dark water, steady and sure. "I have something to ask you," Dante said, taking both her hands. "Constance's commission would take at least a year. I'd need to stay in Mirestone Bay, and—" "Yes," Sienna interrupted, laughing. "Whatever you're asking, yes. You don't even know the question." "Doesn't matter. If it involves you staying, if it involves us, the answer is yes." Dante pulled her close, and their kiss tasted like salt air and new beginnings. When they finally pulled apart, Sienna looked up at the lighthouse, its beam cutting through the darkness with unwavering certainty. "I want to do something," she said suddenly. "I want to start a support group. For survivors of domestic violence. Use what happened to me to help others find their way out of the shadows." "That's a beautiful idea." Dante's smile was radiant with pride. "And I want you to teach art classes at the community center. Show people how creativity can be healing." "Look at you," he murmured. Planning a whole future. Our future, Sienna corrected. She touched her scar gently, no longer a mark of shame but a reminder of strength. For so long, I thought this made me unlovable. But you showed me something better, that being loved isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. You taught me something too, Dante said. That broken things can be more beautiful than things that never broke at all. Because they carry their stories in the cracks. They stood wrapped in each other as the lighthouse beams swept over them again and again. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen, together, to step into the light. Sienna's scarf remained tucked away in her purse, unnecessary armor for a woman who'd finally learned that her worth wasn't written on her face. It was carved into her soul by every moment she chose to keep living, keep hoping, keep believing that she deserved the love she'd finally found. In the morning, she would wake beside Dante and begin the real work of building a life. But tonight, she simply stood in the glow of the lighthouse, feeling the weight of 3 years' shadows finally lift away, replaced by something infinitely more precious. The freedom to be seen, exactly as she was, and know that she was enough. The end. The mission's end. The holographic signature flickered into existence above the conference table, glowing with final confirmation. Commander Jensen Blake exhaled slowly, watching as the peace treaty between Earth's Federation and the Azurian Empire was officially ratified. 6 months of delicate negotiations, countless cultural misunderstandings navigated, and endless diplomatic dinners had led to this moment. It is done, Queen Thalira Moonveil said softly beside him, her voice carrying the melodic quality unique to her people. She stood with regal grace, her flowing robes shifting like liquid mercury under Thessera's bioluminescent lighting. You have given both our peoples a remarkable gift, Commander Blake. Jensen turned to face her, still struck by her presence even after months of daily meetings. Thalira was unlike anyone he'd encountered in his decade of diplomatic service. Her skin held an ethereal quality, catching light like pearl beneath water, and when she looked at him, he felt seen in a way that transcended mere political alliance. The credit belongs to both sides, Your Majesty, Jensen replied, maintaining the professional distance he'd carefully preserved throughout their negotiations. Your willingness to meet humanity halfway made all the difference. Thalira moved closer, and Jensen caught the faint scent of sea minerals and night-blooming flowers that always seemed to surround her. Please, after all this time, call me Thalira when we are alone. She paused, something vulnerable flickering across her features. Jensen, your transport departs at dawn, does it not? Yes. The Federation expects my return for the official celebration on Earth. She was quiet for a long moment, gazing through the transparent walls of her palace toward the glowing tidal gardens beyond. I have a request, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Stay with me. One last night. Jensen felt his carefully maintained composure falter. Throughout their negotiations, he'd sensed an undercurrent between them. Moments when their eyes met and held too long, conversations that drifted toward the personal, accidental touches that felt electric. He'd told himself it was impossible, inappropriate even. She was a queen, he merely an envoy. Thalira, Please. She turned fully toward him, and in her eyes he saw something that made his breath catch. Not the composed ruler he'd negotiated with, but a woman with unspoken depths. There is something I must tell you. Something I must show you. But I need this time. The walk through starlit waters. Jensen found himself walking beside Thalira through the palace's tidal gardens as Thessera's twin moons rose over the horizon. The gardens were unlike anything on Earth. Pathways of polished crystal winding between pools that glowed with natural bioluminescence, creating ribbons of blue and silver light that danced across the water's surface. I discovered these gardens when I was young, Thalira said, her formal bearing softening with each step they took away from the palace. Before the crown, before duty consumed everything, I would come here and imagine worlds beyond our seas. Jensen watched the light play across her features, highlighting the curve of her jaw, the graceful line of her neck. Did you ever imagine meeting someone from those worlds? She smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face. Not like this. In my imaginings, outsiders were always dangerous, mysterious. You are mysterious, Jensen, but not in the way I expected. She paused beside a particularly luminous pool. Tell me something true. Not the diplomat speaking, but the man. What do you dream of when duty releases you? The question caught him off guard with its intimacy. He moved closer to the water's edge, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Freedom, he admitted. I've spent so many years being humanity's voice that sometimes I forget my own. I dream of choosing my path instead of following the one laid out for me. Then we are alike, Thalira whispered. Queens are rarely free. She reached out, her fingers finding his with a hesitation that spoke of vulnerability. Jensen didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his hand, letting their palms meet, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. The contact sent a shiver through him that had nothing to do with the cool evening breeze. This is dangerous, he said quietly, though he made no move to break their connection. I know. Thalira stepped closer, until he could feel the subtle heat radiating from her. I have told myself that every day since you arrived. Yet here we stand. Jensen lifted his free hand, slowly, giving her every chance to step away. When she didn't, he brushed his fingers along her cheek, marveling at the softness. Your council would disapprove. My council disapproves of many things. Her eyes locked with his, filled with something that made his heart race. I have been obedient my entire life, Jensen. I have done everything expected of a queen. But tonight I want to be simply Thalira. The space between them disappeared as she rose slightly, bringing her face level with his. Jensen could see the rapid pulse at her throat, matching his own thundering heartbeat. What are we doing? He breathed. Something inevitable, she answered, and closed the final distance. Their first kiss was gentle, exploratory, a question asked and answered. But as Thalira's arms slid around his neck and Jensen's hands found her waist, drawing her closer, the kiss deepened into something that felt like destiny itself. The gardens seemed to glow brighter around them, as if the planet itself was responding to their connection. When they finally parted, both breathless, Thalira rested her forehead against his. There is so much I need to tell you, she whispered against his lips. But first, let me have this moment without words. The ancient prophecy revealed. They eventually made their way to Thalira's private observatory, a domed chamber at the palace's highest point where the ceiling dissolved into pure transparency, revealing Thessera's star-filled sky. Jensen had been here once during official tours, but at night, with just the two of them, it felt like a sanctuary removed from reality. Thalira had been quieter on the walk back, her hand still in his but her expression growing troubled. Now she stood before a wall of ancient inscriptions, her fingers tracing symbols that glowed faintly at her touch. My people have a prophecy, she began, her voice carrying the weight of revelation. It is older than our recorded history, passed down through every generation of queens. I learned it the day I took the throne, but I never believed. I never imagined. Jensen moved to stand beside her, studying the alien script he couldn't read. What does it say? She took a breath, as if steadying herself. It speaks of a time when the Sara would face a choice, remain isolated in our oceans, slowly fading into obscurity, or open ourselves to the greater cosmos. The prophecy says this choice would be embodied in the Queen herself, and that she would face it through a bond with an outsider. Her eyes met his, shimmering with unshed tears. A bond that transcends politics and reason. A bond of the heart. Understanding dawned on Jensen like a sunrise. Us. From the moment you arrived, I felt it. During our first meeting, when your eyes met mine and something shifted in my chest. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining connections that didn't exist. She turned fully toward him, laying one hand over his heart. But the signs began appearing. The gardens grow brighter when we walk together. The tidal patterns have shifted to match our meetings. Even the scholars have noticed, though they don't yet understand why. Jensen covered her hand with his own, feeling the rapid beat of his pulse beneath their joined palms. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I was afraid, Thalira admitted, her voice breaking slightly. Afraid you would think me mad. Afraid you would leave immediately. Afraid that acknowledging it would make it too real to deny. She stepped closer, until barely any space remained between them. But tonight, our last night, I cannot let you go without knowing the truth. What does the prophecy say happens next? Thalira's expression became complex, hope and fear intertwined. That depends on the choice we make. If the outsider leaves and the bond is denied, the Sara will slowly close itself off, becoming a legend lost to the cosmos. But if the bond is accepted, if love bridges the gap between worlds. She paused, her hand sliding up to cup his face. Then both civilizations will rise together into an age of unprecedented unity and discovery. That's an impossible weight to place on two people, Jensen said, though even as he spoke, he drew her closer, his hands settling at the small of her back. I know. And I would not blame you for walking away. Thalira's thumb traced his cheekbone with infinite tenderness. I am asking for nothing, Jensen. I only wanted you to know why this night matters. Why every moment with you has felt like watching destiny unfold. Jensen searched her face, seeing the truth written in every line, every vulnerable expression. What he felt for her wasn't sudden. It had been building through months of late-night negotiations, shared laughter over cultural confusions, and stolen glances across conference tables. He'd simply been too disciplined to acknowledge it. Until now. Thalira, he said softly, bringing his hands up to frame her face. What if I told you I don't want to walk away? Her breath caught, hope blazing in her eyes. Then I would ask what you do want. This, he answered, and kissed her with all the longing he'd suppressed for half a year. The choice between worlds. The kiss broke slowly, leaving them wrapped in each other's arms beneath the infinite expanse of stars. Jensen rested his chin atop Thalira's head, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, rapid, alive, real. Everything about this moment felt simultaneously impossible and inevitable. My transport leaves in 6 hours, Jensen said quietly, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. The Federation Council expects me at the ratification ceremony. My career, my reputation, everything I've built depends on my return. Thalira's arms tightened around him briefly before she stepped back, composing herself with visible effort. I know. I would never ask you to abandon your life, your duty. That is not what tonight was meant to be. She moved to the observatory's edge, gazing out at her glowing capital city below. I simply needed you to understand that what we feel is not mere attraction. It is written in the stars themselves. Jensen approached her from behind, unable to maintain distance even now. His hands found her shoulders, and she leaned back into his touch with a sigh that spoke of longing and resignation. What happens if I leave? To you, to your people. The prophecy unfolds as it must. The Sara will endure, as we always have. And I. Her voice wavered slightly. I will rule as I was meant to, alone. She turned in his embrace, her palms pressed flat against his chest. But you will have given my people peace with humanity. That is already more than most could offer. That's not enough, Jensen heard himself say. Not anymore. Thalira's eyes widened. Jensen, you cannot. Can't I? He cupped her face, his thumbs stroking her cheeks. I've spent my entire adult life serving the Federation, following orders, being the perfect diplomat. And for what? To return to an empty apartment on Earth, to receive commendations from people who see me as a useful tool. His voice grew passionate. For the first time in years, I feel something beyond duty. You make me feel alive, Thalira. This is the prophecy speaking, she said, but her hands clutched at his shirt as if afraid he might disappear. How can you know what you truly feel? Because I felt it before you told me about any prophecy. Jensen pressed his forehead to hers, their breath mingling in the small space between them. Every morning I woke up eager to see you. Every negotiation felt like foreplay, dancing around what we really wanted to say. Every night I returned to my quarters aching with wanting you. Tears slipped down Thalira's cheeks now, and Jensen kissed them away, tasting salt and starlight. You would give up everything, she whispered. I would be choosing everything that matters, he countered. But I need to know, is this what you want? Not what the prophecy demands, but what your heart desires. Thalira pulled him down into a kiss that answered more eloquently than words ever could. It was desperate and tender, passionate and gentle, filled with months of denied longing finally unleashed. When they broke apart, she was trembling in his arms. "I want you," she breathed against his lips. "I want mornings waking beside you. I want to show you every corner of my world. I want to build something that matters with you, whether prophecy demands it or not." Her fingers threaded through his hair. "But I am terrified of asking you to sacrifice your entire life for possibility." "Then don't ask," Jensen said, capturing her mouth again briefly. "Let me choose. Let me decide that one night with you is worth more than a lifetime of hollow achievements." His hands roamed her back, pulling her impossibly closer. "Let me stay, not because destiny demands it, but because my heart does." Thalira searched his face, and whatever she found there made her smile through her tears. "You are certain." "I have never been more certain of anything." Jensen lifted her slightly, delighting in her soft gasp as her arms wrapped around his neck. "I'll contact the Federation in the morning, explain that I'm remaining as a permanent liaison. They'll be furious, but they can't undo the treaty. And I'll be exactly where I'm meant to be." "With me," Thalira finished, wonder coloring her voice. "With you," he confirmed, sealing the promise with another kiss that seemed to make the very stars above them shine more brightly. They held each other as Thesra's twin moons completed their arc across the sky, no longer counting the hours until separation, but savoring the beginning of something extraordinary. In the distance, the palace gardens glowed with unprecedented brilliance, as if the planet itself celebrated their choice.